All right, so just to kind of continue with the story, um, basically, uh, like I'll just go back to when I was in Escondido. This was like 2015, Escondido, San Diego area, and like I said, so my whole life, I'll just give another example of me being like a communist Jew and not liking white people. Like I remember one time I was walking with my grandpa. This was in high school. This is at the time when my dad, there was abuse happening because my shot got messed up. And I talked about that. I was trying to have it fixed. It's a long story. But so then I was with my grandpa. We went to like a California pizza kitchen. And I remember I said something to my grandpa like, hey, grandpa, I heard that the Mexicans, the Mexicans or Latin Americans, they might be a lost tribe of Israel. Because someone told me that. And in my mind, I was like, yeah. Because I liked Mexicans because I didn't like white people. Because I think I saw myself as Jewish, I always saw the white people as the biggest threat. And I wanted to mix the white people. This is before I knew what the swag flow was. And I didn't know at the time that the white people had more swag flow. But I wanted to mix the white people. I was a typical Jew, right? So I remember I was like, yeah, the Mexicans, they might be a lost tribe of Israel. And my grandpa said, but this is interesting. So my grandpa's always kind of breaking me out of it. He's like, well, I wouldn't be surprised a lot of Mexicans express dualistic software, like Jews. And I remember, again, I was like, you see, always in my mind, in the back of my mind, I'm like, see, my grandpa's a white supremacist. I was always like, yeah, you see, he's a white supremacist. And, so he was basically trying to say, but again, I didn't understand what dualistic software was. I didn't understand what he meant. And later, I'll get to what he meant by dualistic software. But, so I was like, yeah, he's a white supremacist. But, really, I don't blame him for being a white supremacist because he's right. And, that's why I realized, the Jews would be like, oh, the white supremacists are evil. But I'm like, dude, well, the Jews want to mix the white people. They want to destroy the white people. The white supremacists are right. So, I understand the white supremacists. But anyways, at this time in Escondido, I remember at that time, at first, this was right after, this was right when I was living there, like 2014, 2015. Like I said, I kind of went to becoming a right-winger again. But then I started moving back to left wing. And I was vacillating back and forth. I didn't know what to think. But then, I think always in the back of my mind, there was that, anti-whiteness. I remember, because I would still see, Mexican people. And I would still, when I look at them, I imagine myself as brown. I imagine myself as a person of color. And I think that's why I always got along well with people of color. Because I think I'm Jewish. I'm a person of color. So, I put myself in their mode, So I'm talking to, remember there was this Mexican tranny person who was outside my place. And I remember, because I looked at the tranny, and because as a Jew, I like trannies because it's degenerate. It's it's against white supremacy, right? So I like the tranny. So I'm nice to the tranny, right? It was a Mexican tranny girl. Or a Mexican tranny guy who was looking like a girl. But then, I'm talking to him, and I think the tranny guy thinks that I like him because I'm a Jew, and I like trannies, and I like Mexicans. So this guy's like the ultimate. So I'm talking to him, and I do like him. I'm happy to see him because in my mind, I'm like, yes, this is this is against the white race. So, I talked to him, and then he's like, you want to hang out sometime? And I'm like, oh yeah, just come over. Yeah, whatever. But I don't want to do no gay stuff. But then when he comes over, I remember I was watching my basketball videos while he was at my place, and he's like, do you want a leg massage? And I was like, no, dude. I was like, I'm not gay. I'm nice to this guy because I see myself as Jewish, and I want to be nice to the tranny because, he's in my mind, a tranny Mexican's my ally. He's against the white race. But, but I'm like, no, I'm not gay, dude. And then he's like, oh, that's fine. He's like, can I, you think that I can help you, clean your place and stuff? And I was like, okay, yeah, you can do that. And he's like, I'll pay you a little bit to clean my place and do my laundry and stuff. So he's like, okay. He ended up stealing one of my computers, though. But again, this is what my grandpa would probably say. It was my dualistic software. I think that in my mind, I'm like, oh, I'm compassionate. I'm nice to Mexican trannies. And I'm like, the Jews are the best. We're the compassionate people. But really in the back, it wasn't really true compassion. My grandpa would say it was my ego. My emotions were shaped by my ego. And that's why my grandpa says you transcend emotions to the flow, which is a transcendence of the ego body. But, in my mind, I'm thinking oh yeah, I'm a Mexican. I like Mexican trannies because I'm a Jew. So I let him clean my place, and my grandpa said it was because my dualistic software. So I'm being nice, but was it really kindness or was it there was a sinister motivation behind me. I liked the tranny Mexican because he was anti-white, you know? So he's cleaning my place, and he ended up stealing one of my computers, or stealing one of my iPads, right? And then I ended up getting in an, I was like, what happened to my iPad, dude? And he's like, I don't know what happened to it. He, you know, most likely he stole it. Like I'd say 95% chance. Because I don't know what else would have happened to it. He was cleaning my place, and the next thing I know, my iPad's gone. You know, he's like, I don't know. So, I don't know. So I'm getting in a fight with him. And but he's like, hey, man, you know, I run these streets here, you know. I run these streets and stuff because he's a Mexican guy. And he's like, you know, you got to get it. So that's when I ended up trying to leave Escondido, and I went to Los Angeles. And I was staying in my car in Los Angeles because I was scared because I got in a fight with this Mexican tranny, you know. So, but again, my grandpa would say it was my dualistic software that was responsible for it because I saw myself as Jewish. It was my ego identity. So I was nice to the Mexican tranny, and I ended up, you know, whatever. And he ended up stealing my iPad. So then, but I remember, so I was talking to my grandpa a lot at that time, and I was trying to like understand his teachings. So, like I said, I was always for welfare because, again, I didn't like white people, and I liked the idea of welfare. I liked the idea of open borders and give to the Mexicans and give to the blacks because I wanted to prey on the white man. I wanted to prey on him, and I wanted to destroy the white race. So I remember, I remember I was talking to my grandpa, and I was like, you know, Jesus was a communist, Grandpa, and I'm trying to explain to my grandpa that Jesus was a communist. And my grandpa's like, no. My grandpa's like, Jesus was teaching people to transcend the ego. And he was telling me, like, you know, he was against the social, well, you're not against, because if you're against something, that would be the ego, right? But my grandpa would say he wanted people to move beyond the social welfare gospel. So the social welfare gospel is idea, like, you give to the poor, and that will give you salvation. But my grandpa would say, no, salvation, the desire for salvation is still the ego. You want to transcend even the desire for salvation. Like, you know, when Jesus says to the guy, you know, the guy comes up to him, the rich ruler, and he's like, you know, I wanted to think this is communism because he's like, you know, Jesus, how do I get eternal life? And then Jesus is like, you know, he said, good teacher, how do you get eternal life? And Jesus is like, why do you call me good teacher? So my grandpa would say that Jesus was trying to break him out of being obsequious, right? So, but then he's like, Jesus was like, you know, let go of all your belongings and follow me. And I'm like, see, let go of all your belongings. See, Grandpa, he's a communist. Jesus was a communist, and he wants us to all give to the black people and the brown people. And because I really, in the back of my mind, like, I'm thinking, oh, I'm compassionate. I want to give. I want welfare. But really, in the back of my mind, I wanted to just destroy the white race. So my compassion, there was a sinister motivation behind it. And that's what my grandpa, I'll get to that later. But so, you know, but my grandpa would say Jesus wanted people to transcend the social welfare gospel because that can still, as my grandpa was right, it could still be ego-based. And my grandpa would say, giving to the poor doesn't necessarily help the poor. It can create more problems than good. What's best is for people to get jobs. That's what my grandpa would teach. So my grandpa's really into that idea. And then, but, you know, I wasn't. I wanted to believe, you know, that Jesus was a communist and that the Bible was just about, that was an allegory of the destruction of the Roman Empire. And it was anti-white because empire are associated with white. So, you know, I wanted race mixing, but my grandpa, you know, so I wasn't really in the flow. It was my ego, but I'm thinking, but my grandpa's teaching me is like, transcend dualistic software, you know, transcend the ego. So I'm like, yeah, that's what I'm trying to do, Grandpa. You know, in my mind, I'm like, yeah, transcend the ego. Let's race mix. Why do I care? You know, why do the white guys care about being white and the black people, you know, they should transcend the ego and mix. You know, that's what I wanted. Because seeing myself as a Jew, I wanted race mixing. I wanted to destroy the white race. So this is what was kind of, but my grandpa was kind of moving me a little bit away from that though. He's teaching me this stuff. Like, I remember one other thing he taught me was like, I asked him, what do you think about those like commercials about giving to the black Africans? You know, where they're like, you know, these people are poor. And my grandpa said like, they could just move, you know, but again, so I felt like it was victim blaming, like, you know, blaming the Africans, like the idea that maybe they're just primitive and they're stupid and that's why they stay in their poor conditions as opposed to just move. And so I was like, you know, I thought it was victim blaming, but the other thing was like, my grandpa was like, and also those commercials like are emotionalism, like they appeal to people's emotions. But my grandpa said, you want to transcend emotions to the flow, because emotions Now I know. At the time I didn't really understand the emotions are connected to the ego body. So I'll get to this later when I started to understand this in 2020. But so my grandpa's teaching me this stuff. So I'm like, okay, is my grandpa just a white supremacist? Like, he's against welfare, he's against giving? But really, ironically, I was a white, I wanted to destroy the white people. I was a Jewish supremacist. So, I was just like, but my grandpa was kind of moving me more toward the right wing. So that's when Trump came in, I was more of the right winger at that point, and I was more pro-white. But again, still always in the back. As a Jew, I think Jews always have in their core, a desire to destroy the white race. Even if, you can never trust a Jewish person, I think, because you couldn't trust me. So anyways, like I said, I got in an argument with that guy, with the Mexican tranny, almost got in a fight with him. Then I ended up living in my car. Then I ended up going to, ended up staying in Los Angeles. But I'll describe just before I go into the next lecture. But I remember my grandpa stopped teaching me because, again, we were having a conversation. I was talking to my grandpa on the phone, and I'm telling him, I'm like, Grandpa, basically I wanted to talk to my mom and dad. And then I was like, and I told him, I was like, Grandpa, Muhammad, blessing and peace be upon him, because I was studying Islam. He said that you should take care of your family first, and then your country, take care of yourself first, then your family, then your country, and then your nation, and then and then the world. And then my grandpa was like, well, if you're in the flow, you transcend the self. And, you don't necessarily, and the idea is, if you're in the flow, there is no family. So again, this moved me toward the idea of race mixing. So I'm like, okay, so yeah, there's no family. So why don't the white people and the black people mix? Because again, I'm in transcendental consciousness. I'm transcending dualistic consciousness. No, really, this was me going back to my default. It was my Jewish ego wanting to race mix. But my grandpa's like, yeah, if you transcend the ego, then you don't focus on your family first. If you're in the flow, there is no formula, my grandpa would say, but it's basically not you doing it. It's God. You're being moved by the higher power. You're being moved by what my grandpa you said, you'd be one with energy and inspiration. And you get to that level by a lot of contemplation, my grandpa would say, and comprehensivity and so on and so forth, right? But so, but this is the thing. So I was like, Grandpa, your teachings though, of not wanting to give welfare and stuff, I was like, that mom and dad misinterpreted this, and they're seeing this, and they're neglecting me. I'm like, they're not talking to me, and they've interpreted this as make Ryan independent as not talking to me, because I hadn't talked to my dad. And my mom, whenever I talked to my mom, like I said, I would try to talk to my mom, and mom would be like, your dad's never gonna fucking talk to you. You have to accept that. And again, that was my grandpa's teaching. Just accept it. So my mom would misutilize my grandpa's teachings. And then I would talk to my mom, and I'd be like, Mom, can I please tell Dad about the shoot away machine? I want to show him what happened to my... No, don't fucking talk about the fucking past. He's not going to talk about the fucking past. Get a fucking life, you fucking loser. You need to talk to your daddy. You're 24 years old. You still want to talk to your daddy, you fucking loser? And again, this was stemming from high school when the same thing happened. When my shot got messed up, I needed help. And my grandpa comes in, well, Ryan really wants his independence. And my mom's like, yeah, you have to just accept it. You need your daddy? You need your daddy, you fucking pussy? So I'm trying to get a hold of my dad, trying to talk to my dad. And then but I tell my grandpa, I'm like, Grandpa, Mom and Dad misunderstood your teachings. And but then my grandpa was like, and I told him, I was like, and I think Muhammad, blessings, peace upon him, is right. You should focus on your family first. And my grandpa would say that could be a concession, to do this. But if you're not in the flow, it could be a concession to focus on your family first. But you should focus on your family first. And my mom and dad should take care of me, and they should help me out. But my grandpa was like, my grandpa said, no, I think, he was like Warren Buffett. He doesn't give to his children, and he's a billionaire, but he doesn't give any money to his children. He makes his children get jobs because he, if you just give to them, then, that's a form of, ally enemy software. And that's a predatory thing to just take from people and to not get a job yourself. And by working, my grandpa said, it's like the hero's journey. You leverage your assets, and you expand, and you grow your awareness, and he's a part of the anti-entropic reordering function of the universe, and that's a part of the flow. So my grandpa's like, working's important, and I think it's best to not give to even your children. So, you know, I just was, but I'm like, you see, Grandpa, you're the one, like, I think that your teachings have screwed up my mom and dad, because they misinterpret it, and they think that you're teaching that to neglect me and to throw me to the side to make me independent, but they should be talking to me and they should be supporting me. My grandpa was like, I don't want to teach you anymore. I don't want to get involved in your software. I don't want to teach you anymore. So then my grandpa stopped teaching me. So, and then, like I said, I went back to Los Angeles, but my grandpa didn't teach me for years. And then when I was in Los Angeles, and I would call my grandpa all the time, be like, Grandpa, can we please, because I wanted to learn more of what he was teaching. So I wanted to understand what he taught. I wanted to understand the flow. I wanted to understand the stuff, but he wouldn't teach me. Because he was like, I don't want to be subjected to your software. So I'll get more to this later. But I ended up moving back to Los Angeles, and I'll get to this. And like I said, at the time I had a hurt leg, and I wanted help with my leg. So and the other thing was, I wanted to get in touch with my dad. I'll get to this in the next lecture.